Hi, folks, and welcome to another Saturday morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
I'm Mikey. And I'm CJ.
Wait.
CJ's not here.
There is no Grundle.
Grundle is not here.
There is no Grundle, folks. So we're going to have to delay our talk about best 90s cartoons because if he was here, he'd say, I love the 90s.
No. He would say, I love Predator 2.
That's exactly what he would say.
I say, I love the 80s. And he says something like, Mumra.
The everlasting.
Or, hey, guys, I watched Fast and the Furious 7 this morning.
And it was awesome.
It was.
I got a Paul Walker.
Yeah. Paul Walker, that's a good movie.
Had to do a last minute change.
We can't talk 90s cartoons without CJ because he is the 90s cartoons guru.
It is
and
true.
I'm very excited to hear what he has on his list as usual because I bet it's completely different than ours, except for maybe one or two.
It may be. I agree. Seeing that all of his was anime.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but we'll get to that next
Yeah.
week. So we're going to flip the script today.
Gonna go talk about best movie openings.
The opening sequence to a movie that
Yes.
just blew you away, that grabbed your attention from the very beginning, and you said, dang, this is going to be a good one.
And we're already giving you a warning. This is all spoilers.
Spoiler alerts, we have to. Some of these we just can't talk about.
Because we have to explain why they're so good.
Right, so...
Why don't you go first and give me number 5?
I should go first?
Yeah, I'll let you go first.
Oh my goodness, I'll go first.
Yeah.
Mikey's number 5 best opening sequence ever, for me, is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Oh, that is a good one.
The opening sequence where he's the UPS delivery guy, or, a fake UPS delivery guy, delivering the package. You don't know what he's doing, but he's just got this box, and it is just pure Jim Carrey. Squeezing the box, kicking the box, dropping the box.
Dragging against the fence.
Dragging against the fence, getting it, smashed in the elevator. There's that one move where he puts it in between his legs and he tries to flip it over his head and it kind of hits him in the hat, but the camera's right in his face and he just kind of makes this funny face. And so the whole time he's taking it to a gentleman and he's pretending to give him a package so he can turn around and steal the dog back that this criminal stole from somebody. But it's just this wonderful opening sequence because it's Jim Carrey at his finest, right whenever he was becoming a big megastar, and it was, much like we do with CJ whenever we do shows, we're just hey, just go, just play, just have fun. And that every time I watch that, it never, ever, ever gets old. It always makes me laugh.
You're laughing, you love it, but yet you don't have a clue about what's going on. And
right.
that is telling.
It is.
Of an opening scene.
But it does, even though you don't know what's going on, it still does establish his character. After you realize what he does and then he takes the dog back to its owner to get his payment, if you will, then you know who this guy is, you know what his job is. So not only is it funny and crazy, but it actually does set up the movie.
Sense. Yes, it does. It does. That's a good pick.
Yes.
All right, my number 5. This is going to throw you. Meet Joe Black.
What?
Meet Joe Black was a movie that got thrust upon me back in the day, and I was not interested in seeing it at all because that's Brad Pitt, the pretty boy.
Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with Brad. Wait, hold on. There's nothing wrong with Brad Pitt, the pretty boy.
Anyway, moving on.
Brad Pitt's a quality actor. He's underrated, and he was underrated in the 90s.
He's underrated now. I like him better now than I liked him better then.
What? Interview with the Vampire?
I still like him better now.
Well, I like him better now, too, but I'm just saying Legends of the Fall. Meet Joe Black wasn't bad. 12 Monkeys.
Anyway.
7?
12 Monkeys. 7 was great.
But
anyway.
You just didn't like the blonde hair. That's what it was.
Anyway, I'm just telling you, the baby face here.
Okay, Meet Joe Black.
You think it's going to be this romantic, it's a sappy, romantic opening scene. And then he gets hit by a car. And it's the best use of CG I've seen in years. Because it really throws you off because it just happens out of the blue. And then he comes back as death. That's great. That's great. I love that opening sequence. I must have watched that when it came out on VHS. We must have rewound that scene a billion times.
Wow, that's morbid.
I know. Well, I just like seeing Brad Pitt die.
So you're saying you think Brad Pitt's a better actor dead than he is alive?
Yes, indeed.
I understand. You know what? Those type of scenes in movies always get me. The quick bus hitting somebody. It's supposed to be a jolt, but it always works on me. In every movie I've ever seen.
But this time it happened at the beginning of a show, which I thought was.
Yeah, you don't see that too often.
It was interesting.
Yeah, and especially to him.
Yeah.
The pretty boy.
The pretty boy.
Yeah.
All right, what's number 4?
Number 4 best opening sequences of all time. I think I've also mentioned this movie before. We have mentioned this movie before. But the opening sequence of this movie is probably one of the most inventive, creative. Yeah, no CGI, just wonderful set piece. And even as an adult now, when I look at it, I'm still mesmerized by it. But as a kid, it's your mind is blown, and you want this in your house. And it is the opening sequence to Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Whenever he's first waking up in the morning, and he's got everything in his house is automated.
That is a fantastic choice.
The dog food and the cereal and the bowling ball and all that.
The egg rolling down the thing into the frying pan.
Like, everything being cooked for him. And once again, like with Ace Ventura, like you're like, what is this going on? This is neat or whatever. And you think maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the movie, and it doesn't. But it establishes his character.
Putting tape all over his face.
Yeah. And at that point, Pee Wee Herman had not had his TV show. He got the TV show because of the movie.
Because of the movie,
so
that's right.
Except for that HBO special, like this was the thing that introduced the world to two people, to Tim Burton and to Pee Wee Herman. And so every time I watch that sequence, even still to this day, I'm like, wow, like that's crazy inventive. I want to build that like in my kitchen and just be able to wake up one day and boop.
And are you ready for this? I friggin' love the Pee Wee Herman movie. I love it. Never, ever, even as a kid, liked the show. Yeah, I cannot explain why.
It's a different feel. Tim Burton, possibly.
Probably Tim Burton, just the way it was gone. That adventure, but the whole movie.
Well, it had a structure to it. The TV show doesn't have any type of structure.
And it just seemed to be bleh. They just kind of threw up on TV and said, okay, this is what it is. It's Pee-wee, you should laugh. To me, that's how I felt.
But the movie is fantastic. I mean...
and that opening scene...
His bike gets stolen, and he's got to find it. Like, what a cooler...
But it ends, that opening scene, I would say, ends with him revealing the bike and the wind is blowing on the tassels. Yeah. It's great.
He eats the Mr. T cereal and he's talking to it. Yeah.
The missus gets upset because he doesn't eat that much, and she said it looked very, very delicious, and he only ate like a few bites.
Nom, 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 nom. Well, he had to go out and get to his bike, and he presses the button or whatever, and then the bike, and it has that music that...
Oh, it's great. It's great.
And the light shining down.
The light shining. He's squinting, looking at it, kind of smiling, and kind of turning away from the light. Great. Great opening scene. All right, number 4. I don't even know if you've seen this. The remake of Dawn of the Dead.
The one in 2004?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay, you've seen that.
Yeah.
I think that opening scene had me on the edge of my chair, and like no other movie has. Usually there's a build-up, right? Mm-hmm. There's this big family get-together, then you hear something on the radio, then maybe something happens the next day, or something like that. Or they even skip the opening completely and just put you in that world. And this is pre-Walking Dead, so we didn't have anything going on like this. But in the first 10 minutes, I mean, she comes home, they have a little quiet time, and then in the morning, bam, it's there. With the little girl and everything, and then her daughter's dead, her husband's dead, and she's on the run in under 10 minutes. You're like, whoa! This went from 0 to 60. Mm-hmm. This is like the rock and roller coaster at Disney World. I just went from 0 to 60 watching this movie.
Zack Snyder should have put an Aerosmith song at the beginning
yeah.
of that movie.
Almost. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest. I mean, it was. I was just hit, and that whole movie floored me, of course. But that opening scene was just
once again, it sets the pace for that. I mean, that movie runs at breakneck speed most of the movie.
Yeah.
Except for a couple of lulls whenever they get hold
up. And they're proper.
Right.
The lulls are proper.
Yeah. You need a little bit of story here and there, but it's a good way. Because I imagine that. I mean, that's exactly probably what it would be like. Like you don't really have time. Like if something like that was to happen, like you can't sit around and figure out what happened and plan out what to do and then go with it. Like you've got to run and figure it out on the run.
I know.
That's exactly what that movie does.
But I'm telling you, I was on the edge of my seat already, just head like going, what is going on? That was a movie that I didn't want to see. I got drugged to the theater because I said, no, that can't beat the classic. That's me. I was like, no, I'm not gonna watch. This is an insult to the classic. And I watched. I was like, well, this is better than the classic. That was a great film.
It was.
But the opening was what sold me. I was like, okay, I am invested, regardless of how the movie goes. If it has a good opening, I'm going to sit through it if it has a good opening. Go for it.
Well, speaking of good openings, my number 3 favorite opening of all time is from the 1998, possibly 97, P.T. Anderson classic, Boogie Nights.
You're going to have to remind me because it's been so long.
The reason why this opening sequence is fantastic to me is because it is about a 2.5 minute, 3 minute, something like that, single tracking shot. No cuts. What they do is he takes the camera outside on the street and he zooms in and it shows the nightclub, like the disco club or whatever.
Right.
And then the camera goes through the doors, never stops. And so for the next 2 minutes, what it does is it goes around the bar and around the club and it introduces you to every character. So you see Roller Girl being a waitress, you see Dirk Diggler out there dancing or doing something.
Right.
Then you see Don Cheadle's character around talking to somebody. So the whole thing is just wonderful because it's this, and coming from a theater background, I think that's why I respect it, because it's one of these things where, and you know, in movies you can take and take and take and take 2, take 3, take 4, but whenever you take the time to set up and choreograph all of this and say, hey, everybody has to be doing this, this is what we're going to do, so it's like action. So it's almost like doing a play, and then you just forget that the camera is there. And it weaves in and out. It goes on the dance floor. They talk to John C. Reilly as like one of the like Roller Girl like skates by or whatever. And then it like follows her, you know, around and attaches to another character. And as she goes off, it attaches to them. And it's like the camera just kind of ping pongs around until it eventually ends up on Burt Reynolds in the corner over there. And it's, to me, it just sets up this beautiful world. I love Boogie Nights. I think it's one of the finest films I've ever seen. Nails the 70s like nobody's business. But to me,
when you look at the Bob and Flo of a P.T. Anderson film, though, that's it's pretty streamlined about how he does his movies. They're very unique. They have his touch. You automatically know you're watching one, even if his name, even if his name wasn't on it, you could tell. This is the look of P.T. Anderson. He has his own look.
Yeah, it's very patient look. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, Magnolia was the same way at the beginning, where it wasn't a tracking shot, but they played that Amy Mann song and just introduced
all the characters through the Amy Mann soundtrack.
Right,
is what it was.
Really.
I actually just watched that the other day.
That movie's incredible.
It is very incredible, but those are some of the things that he does. And yeah, that introduction, I do remember it now that you say it. Very cool, very nice, and it gives you a flow. It makes you feel like, oh, wow, this is actually kind of cool. And, there's no rock, rap, music playing at the beginning,
Right. Well, it does, for me, it does two things. Number one, like just from a filmmaking aspect, I think it's really neat because I like those type of tracking shots. Like, I love Birdman simply for the fact that, the whole movie was one shot. One shot. So, like, whether it's kitschy or not, whatever, like, I like it. For me, that I kind of think that's cool. But to your point, I love the fact that it's really, really brings you into that world of the 70s. Like, I wasn't alive back then, and all I can really, see from that is movies and TV shows and reading about it and stuff. But, like, it didn't blow you away with some rap music or some soundtrack type crap or whatever. Like, it just put you into that world. Like, it just kind of made you believe this is what it would be like to be in a club in the 70s, and these are the type of people that you would meet there.
Right.
They don't beat you over the head with it. It's just like, hey, welcome to our world.
Yeah. A warm welcome.
Yeah.
Good pick. My number 3, Way of the Gun.
Ooh, I love that movie.
Way of the Gun. The opening scene.
I haven't seen that in a minute.
This is one of the few movies, folks, that I saw the opening scene. I stopped the VCR, and I went to Blockbuster, and I just bought the darn movie based on the opening scene, yet without watching the rest of it. Way of the Gun starts off. It had the opening sequence, by the way, has zero to do with the movie. In fact, the director and the writer even admit to that. The only reason that scene is in there was a scene that was conceived by them while they were walking their dogs in the park. And I'll explain in a minute. They're walking their dogs in the park here, and there are some Frisbee players who play Frisbee, ultimate Frisbee in the park. Well, the Frisbee people hate the dog people because the dogs always chase after their Frisbees. The dog people hate the Frisbee people because their dogs chase after the Frisbees, and they can't control them. So it was always a joke between the director and the writer. I said, what will we do? Because these Ultimate Frisbee guys were supposedly in good shape, better shape.
Well, they are athletes.
Well, yeah, what will we do if we got in a fight with these guys, though? Because it got to shouting matches between the dog walkers and the Frisbee players. And the writer said, well, I would just go up to him and I would punch that guy's girlfriend as hard as I could. And he goes, why would you punch his girlfriend? He went, because either way you look at it, we're going to get our asses kicked. He said, but if I can make her nose bleed, he's going to have to hear her, whine about it the entire, day. And he started laughing. He said, that is funny. They wrote that into their opening scene where the girl's talking smack. The guys are outnumbered. The two main characters are outnumbered by all these angry men. So the guy's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. And Sarah Silverman is actually the loudmouth girl in it. And she's cussing and saying every foul, filthy word that you can think of come out of her mouth. And so what he does is, before he throws the first punch, he just shoves that guy out of the way and just punches Sarah Silverman square in the mouth. And then they get beat up. I mean, they get torn up. The whole crowd just goes nuts on them. But then, of course, as they're walking away, you hear Sarah Silverman complaining to him about, my mouth, he bites my mouth, you made him, why'd you let him do that? And it's hilarious.
That's brilliant.
Is hilarious. And so I remember just stopping the film, laughing so hard, and saying, come on, let's go to Blockbuster. I got to buy this. That scene right there just cemented it for me. It's one of the best opening scenes I've ever seen.
Number 2, best opening sequences of all time. We're going classic on you here. I have to. Indiana Jones. The original, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I'm glad you're going to say that because that was one of my honorable mentions because I do think it is a fantastic opening scene.
I mean, since it's such an older movie now, 1980, 81, whatever, we're getting 35 years. Like, it's definitely a classic. I wouldn't say it's overlooked, but, there's a wealth of other movies that are now getting on top of it. So when you look at that, it becomes almost cliche to start talking about it. But it's cliche for a reason. That opening sequence is one of the most brilliantly, perfectly shot sequences I've ever seen in my life. It's adventure storytelling at its best. Goes and my favorite part of it, and everybody has their favorite parts, and this is a lot of people's favorite parts. Is it's Spielberg was wonderful at the tenderness and the story of the characters and what's going on. And what I mean by that, what I'm getting at is, he goes through all these traps. He finally gets to where he's want to get there, and he wants to get to the stone. And he has the bag, and it's just that little touch of, let me take a little bit of sand out of the bag. And that just makes it's the little things. It's the minor details, Matt.
I'm telling you, the minor details.
It's the minor
That's
details.
Exactly right.
And so, maybe it doesn't weigh just right. So what that does is it puts you into his brain. Like, he's done all these fancy things, but then all of a sudden you realize, wait, he's human. And it kind of...
And he's smarter than he looks. Not just adventurous and cool and agile.
Right. It does a lot of things with one little bit move.
Yes.
And then, boom, puts it on there, and then he thinks he's gotten away, and then he hears the rumble and the sweat and got to run the big ball, and then does all that stuff, and then there's a whole tribe of people out there and loses it at the end. So it's just this wonderful, this guy's adventurous, he's smarter than you, he's probably better looking than you, he's cooler than you, got the hat and the whip, and everything is great, and he's outrunning these big boulders, but then, boop, there's somebody out there that's smarter than him.
And here's the other thing, honorable mentions. All of the Indiana Jones openings.
Well, they are, yeah.
All of them.
The big extended sequence in Temple of Doom is
that one probably being the best, but Temple of Doom, fantastic.
I love that. That whole opening sequence would go the bar whenever the what is it, the pill or the poison or whatever they're trying to find that's getting kicked around the little vial.
It's fantastic.
And that goes all choking. It goes all the way to them getting in the plane and getting in the raft, and that's a big, huge opening sequence.
It's a fantastic opening sequence. Last Crusade, which starts with the flashback.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic opening
on
sequence.
That boat.
And I'm even going to go to bat for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull because the way that one opened up.
I don't even go ahead.
Okay, but even when that one opened up, that was still a good opening. We won't go into it.
No, it actually was a really good opening.
It actually gave me hope. I thought, okay, this is going to be a good movie.
But of course, the fridge and the nuke thing, it kind of gets a little
what? Nuke in the fridge did not bother me.
Really?
Did not bother me at all. Monkeys.
Yeah, monkeys.
Swinging from vines. That bothered me. That bothered me. And the basic concept of a crystal skull, well, we've talked about this, that looks like an alien skull and doesn't look anything ancient or, So I didn't like that at all. But the MacGuffin was terrible.
Yeah.
But anyway, the opening scene was actually very good, and he can do good opening scenes, and Indiana Jones has a consistency for opening scenes, but Raiders of the Lost Ark,
Well, like
yes.
it's interesting, like when I think about that, and I know you have never seen any James Bond movies, but James Bond movies are known for their opening sequences, and,
Right.
and I really feel like Indiana Jones, I've never read this or whatever, so this is just speculation, but I almost kind of feel like the Indiana Jones movies were kind of borrowing from the James Bond movies, where you have this adventure type character, and the beginning sequence usually has zero to do with the main plot of the movie.
Right.
It's just like, this is what this character is doing right now. He's going to do something really neat to get out of it, and then we're going to show the opening credits and move forward. And so, Indiana Jones kind of borrows from that a little bit, but that's good. Like, it gets you.
Oh yeah, get you pumped
ready
and primed for the movie. Exactly. My number 2 is the other movie that I bought right after watching the opening scene. I stopped the VCR and we went to Blockbuster and bought it.
White Fang 2.
No, very close though. Free Enterprise.
Free Enterprise? What is that? Is that
Have you never
Star
seen
Trek?
Yes, the two guys who are Trekkies.
Yeah,
And
no,
they meet
I've never
Captain
seen it.
Kirk. Oh my goodness, they meet William Shatner. It's fantastic. The opening scene, and I'm going to show you this right after we're done. The opening scene is flashbacks when they're kids, and they actually get to meet William Shatner, but only in their head. He appears to them like a shining god or whatever. And there's one scene. And folks, I'm not going to ruin this one actually, because I want Mikey to see this, enjoy it. But he's fighting this kid in the playground, gets knocked unconscious, wakes up in this white room with William Shatner, and William Shatner's going, "What's going on?" And so he has to tell William Shatner what's going on with the fight. Did he start it? Why did it start? And blah, blah, blah. And William Shatner's response at the end, before the kid wakes up, to his, dilemma, is one of the best things William Shatner will ever do. He hasn't done anything funnier, I'll tell you that. In all of his comedic appearances and roles, he will never say any other line funnier
Dang, I'm intrigued.
than what he said.
I'm now wondering if I've seen
everyone's
that.
intrigued. Everyone should check it out. Free Enterprise is
sounds-
definitely worth your time, because these are people who are old school sci-fi, like before Star Wars sci-fi. So they like Logan's Run, Planet of the Apes, and that's what they talk about. Now, the only thing that dates this movie, folks, is they talk about Laserdisc. This was back in the day when Laserdisc was fighting DVD for supremacy.
Wow.
And there was a big push in Hollywood because they loved Laserdisc better. Unfortunately, the public went for DVD. Kevin Smith thought that Laserdisc was the wave of the future. DVDs were garbage. But it turned out DVDs won out. But this movie went with the populace in Hollywood, which was Laserdisc was going to be the future. And so it's dated only because they keep talking about Laserdisc.
How could anybody think that, though? Like, realistically, like, all right, so Laserdisc is basically a movie on a record. So records went out, like, in the early 80s, then you had tapes, and then but CDs, by the time Laserdisc started, or music CDs.
Old school people like those records.
Like,
I'll be honest, if they made some fancy digital tape, I would totally be for that. Because I remember tapes back in the day.
Well, I wonder
and
what
tapes back in the
I wonder
day
what that
were
is,
where
though,
I'm
because
at.
like music purists will talk about records and how like they really prefer to listen
Nothing
to music.
better
on
than that vinyl.
Right. Nothing,
Exactly.
The sound, and so like I wonder if movies are the same way, like, or at least at that time. Like, I actually own a few laser discs, but they're just like collector's items. Like, I don't think I've ever actually watched a laser disc. So like I wonder if like I'm gonna have to ask Zach about this, because Zach would know.
He might
like
know.
Does it have like a more authentic picture quality or something like that? Because it certainly doesn't hold more info.
I don't think it does. No, and see, that's the thing. Whichever one holds more info wins. If you think about this, when HD DVD and Blu-ray went head-to-head, my dad even said this. He said, Blu-ray's going to win. I said, why is that? And he said, because it holds more memory. And whichever one holds more memory always wins, because Beta and VHS. VHS held more than Beta.
Yeah.
And VHS won out.
Yeah.
And that's been the consistency when it comes to media.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, they can produce more for less and pack more on there.
Pack more on there. All right. So, what is numero uno?
Number one, we're going to stick with the classics. And to me, these are some good opening sequences that we've talked about.
These are great.
And there's plenty more out there.
There's a million others.
But to me, there's one clear winner for best opening sequence of all time.
And that is?
Dun-dun.
Wow.
Dun-dun.
Wow. You're going with that one.
Dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. Yeah, of course. The opening sequence to Jaws.
The missus agrees with you 100%.
Is probably the most perfect way to set up a movie ever. And now that movie to me is perfect. I mean,
it is.
You hear me
That's
talk
another
about,
one.
You hear me talk about Spielberg a lot. You know, Spielberg is Spielberg for a reason. The man is an absolute genius.
That's exactly right.
And the crazy thing to me about Jaws, like, I look at me and you know, 36, 37 years old. Like, Spielberg was 24 years old when he directed Jaws, one of the most celebrated movies of all time. What were you doing when you were 24? Like, not something like that.
Watching Jaws with a bag of Cheetos on my lap.
Jaws. But the opening sequence of Jaws is still, to this day, very creepy, very effective, you know, and because everybody's been there. Everybody knows the serenity of the beach at nighttime, just how beautiful it looks, the moonlight shimmering and reflecting off of the water.
And that was the last time anyone thought that.
No, exactly, it was. Yeah, and then, you know, then you've got this really beautiful woman who's, you know, gets naked, goes out there, and you kind of, you know, if you're a guy, you kind of like understand that emotion of like, hey, you know, like nobody's around on the beach, got this pretty girl, we want to get in the water type of thing. She goes out there and, whoop, but you never see the shark.
But you're terrified.
But you're terrified because you just see her. Because everybody knows what it's like to be in water and to feel like, like I have to really be responsible right now. Even if you're in a pool. Because like if you've been underwater for, you know, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds, you know, like whenever you come up and that, like that breath of life you get means a lot to you. So when you see her just dip under. And then she's looking around and she doesn't know what and just that scream. And then when she starts getting dragged around in circles and she's screaming and thrashing and then it's just nothing. Like Spielberg has the wonderful foresight to know that I can't cut away from this. So whenever she goes under, it goes back to being serene. So it's like everything that happened, it never happened. And it's this weird kind of like, whoa. Like, first of all, the ocean is bigger than you and every bit of your problems, but the creatures in the oceans are just as devilish.
Just as terrifying as what's under your bed. That's exactly right. Great number one. And the one thing I love about this week is we didn't have a single one that matched up.
That's good.
Because my number one has got to be Up.
Oh, that's so funny.
I love Up. I don't think Pixar has. The Pixar has made better movies. They have not
arguably.
They have not made better scenes than the opening of Up. And I am thinking about Toy Story 3, which had some excellent scenes. There have been some excellent scenes in Pixar, but nothing so far to me has come close to the opening scene of Up. Opening scene of Up. In 5 minutes, we not only understand our protagonist, but we also feel for him and are invested in the film and what happens to him. In 5 minutes, we know his life. The musical montage is unbelievable. Your heart is happy watching it. Sad at the same time.
Yeah, what other cartoon do you know that in the first 5 minutes will break your heart and make you cry?
I've never seen anything like that. But it makes you happy at
first. No, it does. Like, it's the most it's the strangest dichotomy of, like, I am so heartbroken, but I'm so uplifted.
They took you on a roller coaster of emotions.
You know why? Because they portray to you perfectly the power of love. And what it can do and what it can do to anybody, and why it's the most like powerful force on this earth, and that even if you're this little nerdy kid, you can find it, and whenever you find it, hold on to it.
These weren't just happy moments; they were just everyday life scenes. Yeah. Every day, she's tying his tie. Mm-hmm. What?
Yeah.
Are you? It's unbelievable. Whoever thought about that? Whoever wrote that opening sequence? I don't have a name on me, but. Brilliant. That is brilliant.
Well, they realize that, you know, whenever you're inside of a life, whenever you're living your life is probably defined by, you know, these big moments that happen to you. Like, I'm going to graduate high school. Like, I'm going to get married. I got to get this new job. Yada, yada, yada. Get this house, whatever. But these people obviously had done their research and talked to people that have lived long, fulfilling lives, and they really hit you right in the face with those do not make your life. It's the little moments, that everyday life that make up a life that you constantly overlook, that you do not need to overlook.
Going on a picnic can mean so much.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Having a friend,
fantastic.
just having that friend, having that person that you can be in like a special club with.
And as a word here, if you can watch that opening scene without getting misty-eyed, you are a Cylon.
Yes.
You are a Cylon. You are not
a
human.
predator.
You are a predator, and I will hunt you down because I do not trust anyone
You will
who
go
does not
full Danny Glover on them.
at least get misty-eyed watching that scene. It is very touching, and I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, it got to me. It pulled me in. It still pulls me in.
Well, there is another moment in that movie that, in all honesty, gets me just maybe a smidge more than that. But it wouldn't get me if it wasn't for the opening sequence.
I was going to say, you have to have the opening sequence, though. But yes, I agree. But Pixar does really good at making these sentimental, because I think they know that their audience has grown up.
Yeah.
And it's not just for kids, and the parents, they give something in there. They give something emotional. You get emotionally invested in the characters, too. And they show that, because back in the day, cartoons wouldn't have anything like that. I mean, well, besides Transformers, but that was just for shock value.
Well.
Dang. But anyway, though, with that opening scene, I think Pixar made their mark and said, hey, we're more than you're giving us credit for.
You know what, though?
We're smarter than just a kid film.
I can't disagree with you on that, but I think they did that years earlier.
With who?
With mainly Toy Story 2. Like, Toy Story 1 was very emotional, really touched on that,
Right,
like
no, they were all emotional,
but the part in Toy Story 2, whenever Jessie, the girl cowboy, is sitting at the window and singing that song, that Sarah McLachlan, when she loved me, and watching that was that moment of like, wait a second, like, this is real. They're talking about real life stuff.
That's true, but An American Tail
basically
did the same thing. If you want to go, because the sentimental song has been done.
Yes.
The sentimental scene,
Somewhere.
Oh, geez. Stop now. I'm getting upset about Fievel now.
You're getting a little misty there.
I'm telling you. But anyway, okay, so honorable mentions, because Indiana Jones is mine.
Yeah, well, go ahead. What else do you have?
No, that was it. What were your honorable mentions?
Well, just off the top of my head, just a couple other ones that I think about when I think of opening. Well, I talked about James Bond. Right. One of my very favorite ones is GoldenEye. It was the first Pierce Brosnan one. It's one of the greatest James Bond opening sequences. I love the opening sequence to Dark Knight. I think that it was all shot in IMAX, and that bank heist by the Joker. It's a really, really neat.
That was good
opening sequence. It really introduced you to Heath Ledger's Joker in such a powerful way, and I thought that was really neat. And the fact that it was shot all in IMAX did not hurt. I love the opening sequence to Pulp Fiction. I think it's genius just having Tim Roth, one of your favorite guys. And
I love Tim Roth.
Who's it? I guess it was Patricia Arquette, yeah. And they're just talking in the diner, and they're having just after you've seen Reservoir Dogs, and you get a little bit of
that's a nice, quaint opening scene that it has a lot of meaning to it.
It does have a lot of meaning.
I agree with
because
that.
Then it wraps back around towards the end, and and then the other one that I want to talk about is another Quentin Tarantino movie, Inglourious Bastards. The opening sequence to that movie is probably one of the most tense, high anxiety opening sequences I've ever seen, and that's whenever they're in the farmhouse and the Nazis are coming and Christoph Waltz is coming and they have to hide that other family.
It's at the very beginning of the movie, and already you're like, you're holding your breath.
Right. And
you don't even know why.
It's because Christoph Waltz is like so nice. And he's so, but you already have like this built-in bad guy of the Nazis. And the Nazis aren't good guys. And then that Quentin Tarantino has a penchant for lots of bloodshed. So then you just know something bad is going to happen. You just don't know how, and you don't know when. And so the whole time, you hear they're underneath the floor. He's sitting there just talking to like the farm owner. Really, really nice and creepy. But you just expect something really awful to happen, and then it doesn't happen. And then it doesn't happen. And then it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen. And then it does. And you're just. But that whole time, I'm like, I remember seeing that in the movies. I was like, oh. Because at some point you're going to get Tarantino'd.
Tarantino'd. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So,
all right. Good honorable mentions. Great podcast.
It was a great podcast.
Do we even need Grundle here now?
I think we should replace Grundle with Danger Step.
Danger Step?
Yeah.
Need a little pep? Call Johnny Step.
If you're tired of being a saddie, call Stepdaddy.
Oh! All right, folks, that's all the time we have for today. We'll see you next week on some more Saturday morning Samoflange. Folks, if you're in danger, call Johnny Step. I don't have anything that rhymes with that.
What can I think of real quick that you can edit in there?
Yeah.
If you're tired of being a fatty, call Stepdaddy. I can't say that. I wonder if something rhymes with daddy, but natty, light, tatty, satty, waddy, bladdy, batty.
You gotta go with fatty.
Fatty's a pretty good one.